This is RRG Online Academy. This is Rasul and welcome to this writing course. In this video, we're going to talk about writing clarity. Let's consider these two examples. The first part of example 1 says, we conducted an investigation of it. And the second part of it says, we investigated. The first part of the second example says, a review was done of the regulations. And the second part says they reviewed the regulations. Now, my question for you, considering both these examples, first part, second part, which one of these two are clearer? That's right, the second part of each example is much clearer than the first part. Instead of saying we conducted an investigation of it, we could basically say we investigated it. Instead of saying a review was done of the regulations, we could simply say they reviewed the regulations. But here is the question. How do we do that? How do we change complex sentences, confusing sentences into neat, clear ones? Well, watch the rest of the video. There is a common pattern to students writing. They think that if they use complex grammatical structures, advanced vocabulary, their writing is going to be a masterpiece. They want to show off their writing, but that is not the case. The art of writing is not writing in a complex manner. The art of writing is this: write the most complex things so simple that high school students would understand. Look at your university books. They are written in a very simple way. So please do not try to write like Shakespeare. This is not a literature exam. Now tell me, has it ever happened to you that when you write, you want to say, oh, let me use this word or let me use this complex grammatical structure, and when you do that, you feel like Shakespeare? Yeah, when you do that, it's only you who thinks you are being Shakespeare. Your reader is confused. We do not see what's going on in your mind. We see only what is on paper. You can save your writings by this very simple rule. Write shortly and directly. These techniques come from a great book called Style Towards Clarity and Grace, written by Joseph Williams. Should you get the book? No. What I want you to do is this. First, you have to get through some academic writing rules. You have to go with lighter books with some videos like this one. And after learning some techniques and spending some time writing, getting used to it, that's the time for you to delve into that book. The book is very heavy, very professional. So for now, forget it. But these are some important parts that I have cut from that book, and I have tried to make as simple as possible for you to understand. Alright, we are going to go through a series of techniques, a series of skills, which help us to write clearly. Now, the first fundamental principles. Number 1, the subject of the sentences should name the cast of the characters. What does this mean? We're going to discuss it in detail, but for now, here is a glance. Sometimes we write sentences in which the characters are not the subjects. More about that later. Number 2, in a clear sentence, the verbs that go with those subjects name the crucial actions those characters are part of. I'm going to give 2 examples. This is not going to clear the way out, we're just getting started. Then we will discuss the details step by step. This is the original sentence. It says, our lack of knowledge about local conditions precluded determination of committee action effectiveness in fund allocation to those areas in greatest need of assistance. Now, a clearer, revised version is this. Because we knew nothing about the local conditions, we could not determine how effectively the committee had allocated funds to areas that most needed assistance. Let's analyze these sentences. Now, with regard to point number 1, the subjects of the sentences name the cast of the characters. In the original sentence, the subject is not necessarily the character in action. Now, read the first part of the sentence. It says, our lack of knowledge about local conditions precluded determination of X. Cut it there, let's analyze it. So what's the verb? Precluded. What is the subject? For now, forget about the difference between grammatical subject and psychological subject. Anything that appears as doing the action, for now, just consider that. Now, here, the topic or the subject is our lack of knowledge about the local conditions. But if you take a look at the corresponding part of the revised sentence, we have a clear and direct subject, which is the character in play. It says, because we knew nothing about the local conditions, we could not determine how effective da-da-da-da-da. As you can see, the characters, the subjects are clear. Look at the beginning of each sentence. We knew da-da-da-da-da. We could not da-da-da-da-da. So as you can see, the subjects are in their proper place. But in the original sentence, that's not the case. Alright, the second point. The verbs that go with those subjects name the crucial actions those characters are a part of. I'm going to start with the revised version this time. Look at the first part. It says, because we knew nothing about local conditions. So what is the verb? Knew. What is the subject? We. So the verb follows the subject very clearly, very directly. And the verb names the action. Sometimes we use empty verbs. We will discuss them in detail. For example, she appears upset because of the news. The verb appear in the sentence is an empty verb that doesn't carry the action. So we could basically revise the sentence saying, well, the news upset her. Here, the verb upset carries the action. Now, back here, because we knew nothing, da-da-da-da-da. So, know carries the action here. The second part, we could not determine. The verb is determine. Again, carries the action. But this is not the case with the original sentence. Let's see. Our lack of knowledge about local conditions precluded determination of committee action, da-da-da-da-da. Now, the original verb here is precluded, but that verb does not show the crucial action of the subject. What is the real subject here? Is it our lack of knowledge? Is that what does the action? No, it's gonna be we who does the action. So the verb should reflect our crucial action, but it's not the case in the original sentence. But how do we fix the problem of complex sentences? Here is a tip. If the text feels too abstract and complex, run a line under the first 5 or 6 words of every sentence. Why do we do that? This is the reason. 1. If you need to go more than 6 to 7 words to get past the subject to the verb, and 2. If the subject of the sentence is not one of your characters, then you are in trouble. You need to revise that sentence. That is, the characters and actions probably do not align with the subjects and verbs. So all you need to do is to put your characters as the subjects and use action verbs of those subjects in the sentence. Here are some points and examples. In the first example, let us take a look at the first part of the example. It says there has been an affirmative decision for program determination. My question for you, who is the subject and what is the verb here? Subject, not clear. Verb, not an action verb. How do we fix that? Very simple. Create a subject yourself, put it in the beginning of the sentence, then change the words from their empty form to their action form, and voila, the sentence is done. So what's the subject? I'm gonna put the director. What is the verb? Well, instead of decision, we could write decide. Instead of termination, we could write terminate. So the sentence goes like this. The director decided to terminate the program. Boom. Simple, clear, direct. Point number 2. In order to have a clear writing, it is better not to use too many prepositions. Let's look at the first part of example number 2. An evaluation of the program by us will allow greater efficiency in service to clients. The sentence looks terrible. How do we fix that? Create a subject, put it in the beginning of the sentence, bring an action verb, put them together, you're done. What's the subject? We. What's the verb? Evaluate. and the second verb, serve. So the sentence goes like this: we will evaluate the program so that we can serve clients better. Now, judge it yourself. Read the first part, read the second part. Which one makes sense? Which one is easier to understand? And even if you understand the first part, that's not the point. The point is not to write in a way that you yourself would understand. The point is to write in a way that people with slow minds would understand. Point number 3. Do not use a verb merely to state that an action exists. Instead, use a verb to express the action. Look at the first part of the third example. A need exists for greater candidate selection efficiency. Again, the sentence is very complex. Create a subject, we. Bring action verbs. A need exists, we could go with must, and with selection, we could go select. So the sentence changes into we must select candidates more efficiently. Fourth example, there is the possibility of prior approval of it. Again, you know what to do. Subject, he. Verb, approve. Instead of possibility, well, we could go with may. So the sentence goes, he may approve of it ahead of time. That's all. Now, back to the 2 examples we started this video with. Now you have a much better understanding of why some of those sentences felt ambiguous and why others felt clear. You know it. We conduct an investigation of. Subject is already there, but conducted is an empty verb. That's not the action verb. The action verb is investigate here. So just say that. That's all. We investigated it. Number 2, a review was done of the regulation. Who's the subject? God knows. What is the verb? Well, a beautiful empty one. So let's get rid of that. Let's create a subject, they, and now let's put the noun form of review into the verb form. So we have they reviewed the regulations. Before we start talking about the next point, I don't know if you paid attention so far, but usually whenever we see a noun, we change it into a verb. It makes the sentence clearer. Look at the example above. Instead of the noun investigation, we said use the verb investigate. Instead of the noun review, well, again, use the review but as a verb form. So, why do we do this? Here is the thing. Inexperienced writers, instead of using verbs, specifically action verbs, they decorate their sentences with lots of nouns. Using nouns instead of verbs in a sentence is called nominalization, and we will try our best to avoid using nominalizations. Are we going to eliminate all nouns altogether? Well, no, but there are some cases that you can use them effectively, but mostly we do not like to use nouns. Just go with verbs. It's gonna make your and reader's job easier. So what is the next technique? Yeah, eliminate nominalizations. Point 1. When the nominalization follows a verb with little specific meaning, change the nominalization into a verb that can replace the empty verb. Let us see an example. The police conducted an investigation into the matter. Well, the verb here is conducted, but it's an empty verb. Like, that doesn't carry the action. The action is an investigating part, right? We will need to change it into a verb form. To get rid of the nominalization, the sentence goes like this. Subject, the police, verb, investigated, and the object, the matter. So, the police investigated the matter. Point number 2, when the nominalization follows there is or there are, change the nominalization to a verb and find the subject. Example, there was considerable erosion of the land from the floods. Unless you want to torture someone, you might want to change this sentence. What is the subject? The floods. And we were using erosion as noun, change it into a verb, so eroded in the past. The sentence goes as, the floods considerably eroded the land. Again, I ask you, which sentence is clearer? Yes, that one. Number 3 is similar to number 1, and we have already discussed it. It deals with using empty verbs. Here is the short answer. Don't. Get rid of empty verbs. Example, our discussion concerned a tax cut. What is the verb? Concerned. Does it carry the action? No, it's an empty verb. What is the noun? Discussion. Well, guess what? That discussion should be the verb. And who's the subject? We. So, we discussed the tax cut. Remember how I said we do not eliminate nominalizations all the time? Here is one case. We often use a nominalization after there is or there are to introduce a topic that we develop in subsequent sentences. For instance, there is no need then for argument about the existence, the viability, and the desirability of change in language. There is need, however, for argument about the existence of such things that. What would happen if I change those nouns into verbs? Yes, it would be a tragedy. If we use verbs instead of all those nouns, the sentence is gonna be annoyingly long. So sometimes you can use nominalization to make the sentences shorter. But do not use nominalizations too much. Wherever you see you can save a sentence from a lengthy boredom, go with the noun. Next, choosing between active and passive sentences. Remember when you write, you always go, oh, let me use this passive sentence to show off my good English? Yeah, don't do that. Doing that doesn't mean that you have a good English. All it does is that it confuses the reader. And since you do not write to yourself and you are writing to other people, you should consider what is going on in their mind, not what is already there in yours. But rules are rules. When you want to decide whether to use active or passive voice, ask yourself these two questions. Must our audience know who is performing the action? Question number 2, and a very important point. Are we maintaining a logically consistent string of subjects? What on earth does this question mean? You'll understand it better in these examples. Here's the thing. I'm not going to read these lengthy examples. Pause the video, read them. I'm going to jump into analyzing them. The original sentence is, it was found and revised sentence is, we found that So go ahead and read. Yeah, it was easy, wasn't it? Yeah, I did color coding to help you with that. Question number 2. Are we maintaining a logically consistent string of subjects? In the first example, the subjects are chosen almost at random. What is the subject of the first sentence? Well, it appears to be it. Then this action, then a determination, then a system. You see, the subjects are chosen almost at random. Look at the subjects of the second example. We, Department of Energy, federal offices, the department, the secretary, and his office. So what? In the first example, the sentences are mostly written in passive form, which makes it very difficult for the reader to understand, and which makes your subject almost random. But in the second sentence, we give a consistent string of subjects. The first part of the first example, it was found that data, Who found it? Well, we don't know. But in the second example, well, we know. It was we. So the second part of the first sentence, the data concerning energy resources allocated to these stages were not obtained. Were not obtained by who? Well, we don't know. But in the second example, we know. It is the Department of Energy. So, the Department of Energy did not obtain the data. Second sentence of the first example. This action is needed so Who needs this action? Again, we don't know. But in the second example, we know that. Look at the second sentence. The department needs these data. And the rest of the sentence. Please pause the video and compare the two examples. Conclusion for this last section. When you use passive sentences, usually you jump from one subject to another without clear connections. But if you use active voice, putting subject, verb, object back to back, the sentences will appear clearer. But if in some cases you think that you can use passive form and still retain a sequence of subjects from a consistent point of view, go for it, no problem. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, share, subscribe to help the channel, and stay tuned for the other videos.